Hello all. Welcome to this accelerating impact evaluation session. I'm assured that we have exciting hour ahead of us. I am Saila Tykkyläinen, your host and speaker for this evening. I'm researcher and practitioner of social entrepreneurship, so I work with creating and evaluating social impact daily basis. Our today's objective is to understand the process and key elements within the social impact evaluation. And there, few words about me still. I'm finalizing my PhD thesis in Lappeenranta University of Technology on social enterprise growth, and I'm expecting to defend my thesis during this year, so the finishing line is already there. I'm also a social entrepreneur myself. I founded my Impact Business Ltd about 2 years ago, and I train, coach, and mentor different type of organizations on how to utilize social impact evaluation methods and how to get benefits out of that evaluation process. And previously, I have also worked with the Finnish social enterprise mark. I was originally launching the mark and developing it during the first 2 years or so. Exciting times. Few key figures from my life. I'm proud mother of 2 lovely and lively daughters. I have scored 0 goals, so I play soccer. Luckily enough, I don't have to make living out of it. And as I said, I founded my social business, the Impact Business, about 2.5 years ago. And until now, I have worked around 150 different type of organizations, from startups to NGOs and public sector organizations, and help them to apply social impact evaluation methods. But on the agenda, today we will first speak a little bit about social impact. What is it? And then quite swiftly jump into going through the process of evaluation, why to evaluate at the first place, what is it for me, and then we focus on defining the need, the societal need or problem, which essentially tells the others, your clients, your investors, and so forth, why you are doing what you are doing. And of course, setting goal, impact goal, is related to this issue. So what is it that we are going for? And then we talk about impact model, how to draw up a good and solid impact model, and how and what type of indicators it should include, so that you are able to prove your impact and you are able to analyze and make decision based on your performance. So that's the content and structure for today. But let's start with social impact. I mean, until recently, the discussion around sustainable development, CSR policies, and sustainable entrepreneurship has focused on reducing footprint, so reducing harms, reducing the negative side effects that certain activities or businesses might have. And while this is, of course, sorry for that, I have terrible cold. While that is, of course, good thing, the step ahead would be to think about how to create a big handprint. And by handprint, I mean providing solutions or creating businesses which are designed to produce certain social good for people, for communities, or for the larger societies. So creating handprint is all about maximizing social impact, not just reducing harms. And of course, for social enterprises, there's nothing new to this, at least so it should be. By definition, they have the purpose of their business is to create social impact. But also the forerunners in corporate world are starting to move closer and closer to this handprint thinking. And why is that? Because reducing footprint doesn't necessarily anymore give you any competitive advantage or unique selling points. So you need to prove that you are actually doing social good in order to gain from it commercially. And the aim should be, of course, proven impact. You won't get any competitive advantage. You won't be able to attract any impact investors or create these value promises which would have effect unless you can prove your impact. And that is our aim also for today's session. I will help you, or let's say I will give you some tools and some ideas how to get to that point where you can actually prove your impact. And please keep in mind that it's not only about proving your impact for stakeholders, such as investors, funders, or clients, but most of all, you should be interested in being certain that you are actually doing as good work as possible with the resources that you have. And therefore, social impact evaluation methods and tools should definitely be used in order to create and develop your own activities to maximize your social impact. So these evaluation methods aren't only for others, for convincing others, but also to develop your own business. And we will use mainly this social impact evaluation canvas. I developed this tool because I kept having these questions, or kept receiving these questions and anxiety. Well, but okay, so we have to evaluate our impact, but from where should we begin? What we should do next? And how am I ever going to build a good impact model? What are the sort of ingredients or building blocks of good impact models? In other words, there was clear demand on this type of tool, which really gives your sort of guidelines or guides you through the process of evaluation, from the starting points to drawing up a good solid impact model to all the way to setting good quality indicators. And this tool was also tested last spring, actually, when I ran several training programs and impact accelerators for startups and NGOs. So I had good chance to test this canvas. And I'm happy to say that it's also already widely used in Finland. So what is it that you should do first? You should ask, well, why am I evaluating impact? Who will use the information? Who will make decisions based on it? Because it really takes quite different information to convince, for example, potential investors, if you compare it to the situation where you would be developing altogether new solution. Or if you are trying to use social impact that you are creating as a selling point in recruiting, so making your employees happy. Those 3 different reasons for doing impact evaluation really demand different type of information. And I can tell you that quite often organizations think that they can cover all the necessary perspectives at once. So we just draw up this impact model and set the measures, and that's it. But that's not how it works. Impact evaluation is a cyclical process, an iterative process, and it definitely makes a lot of sense to start it with some really limited perspective and limited goal, because that enables your organization to learn from it, learn from the practices and processes that suit for you, and makes the whole thing really much more simple. So first, why are we evaluating our social impact? That's the first question you should ask. And then I wanted to include the organization impact vision in this canvas as well. Your impact vision, it should start your pitch. It should tell the world why your business or your project or your NGOs is there. What is this problem you are solving? And then also tell how the solution that you are evaluating is contributing to that vision. For a startup or really small organization, this might not mean so much. But if you think about any public sector organization or big NGO or big social enterprise who have parallel services, many projects running constantly, and they get also a lot of asks to cooperate. And making social impact or creating social impact is really about thinking thoroughly how to use our resources best possible way, so that every service, every project that we are involved in serves the purpose. It brings you closer to your impact vision. So especially bigger organizations, this is important perspective, but smaller ones too, especially the part about impact vision. Well, moving on, the middle part of the canvas is all about impact model. What makes creating and evaluating social impact so tricky sometimes is that you have to be able to operate in 2 different levels, societal level and program level, or the level of your product or service or other solution. And you have to be able to combine those two levels. And what you see here is essentially an impact model, and the boxes presents the different stages of that model. And we will get into in detail each of these boxes in a minute, but this illustration should tell you that different components are situated in different levels. The need, for example, or the problem that you are tackling with, it exists in societal level. It has certain root causes and it has consequences. Obviously human too, but societal as well. But those big needs or problems like, let's say, climate change or social exclusion, there isn't any organization who could alone solve those type of problems. So the next task is to extract a goal for your own operation from that need. What can you achieve? What kind of change can you create? So there you see is the first connection between the societal level and program level. And please do not be scared me saying societal level. I mean, it might be as well in community level, in certain regional level, or so forth. So it doesn't have to be whole nation, let alone whole continent. Well, you have your goal defined, then you should be able to describe your solution and tell what are the outputs, what are you making or creating in practice, and then what kind of changes in human lives, in your target group's lives, are you causing? And that's already in between the lines of your program and the society. And the impact tells you, or you should be able to tell how those changes that you are creating contribute to the society. Whether you are able to actually diminish or reduce the need. That is, of course, in the end, what you are going after. So, let's get into details with this canvas. I already spoke a lot about need, and the bit about need is essentially you justifying why is it important to meet this need. For example, if you are dealing with social exclusion, we know from research and from experience that social exclusion has many root causes that has to do with education level, with family background, with social relationships, and so forth. And also, it's a bit different depending on whether you are speaking of youth or people in verge of retirement. So already in this phase, you should narrow down the need. So please don't write here social exclusion, but be more specific. For example, the problem would be that the Finnish boys do not, or certain group of Finnish boys do not get upper secondary grades. They don't graduate from upper secondary schools, and that actually is one of the main causes behind social exclusion. And then you could tell how much does it cost for the society and so forth. So already in this phase, be a bit more specific. What's the need you are targeting to? And then the goal. And the goal should be in terms of change in beneficiaries' lives. For example, that within next 5 years, you will be helping certain age boys, boys going to upper secondary schools to graduate within, let's say, 2 years. in certain area in Finland. That would be a impact goal that is specified, measurable, achievable, probably with my resources, and also highly relevant to tackle the social exclusion, and also time-bound. So be precise with your goals and always set them in terms of changes and not outputs. The good impact goal isn't, for example, that, well, we will give guidance or we will give support for 200 boys. That's only output. It doesn't tell what changes in their lives. And last but not least, the critical partners. When we are dealing with these vicious problems, such as social exclusion is, we definitely need partners to do the work efficiently. So even though you would be focusing only evaluating your own activities, your own business, you hopefully work with others, work with partners. Those ones should be mentioned too. And let's move on with the impact model. Those of you who are familiar with the impact chain, the so-called input, output, outcome, impact model, it's pretty common. You will see commonalities here. Only I have replaced the input with solution, because I really think that organizations should be more careful and more, let's say, profound when they are describing their solution. What's the secret sauce that makes it all happening, that convince the stakeholders that you are actually able to reach your goals and making those changes to happen? It shouldn't be only resources, but also the properties, the features. What is unique in your solution, or how does it complement what already is there in the market? And then outputs, what is actually done. So tell about quantities, how many users, how many clients, how many activities carried out, or how many interventions, whatever is it that you are doing. And actually this quantitative part is easy, but you should also pay attention to qualitative elements of the outputs. It's quite often, if not always, crucially important to understand how the users or the clients are experiencing your solution. So feedback, activity levels of participations, those might be important features in your outputs. But also you should definitely focus on finding out how committed your clients or the target groups, however you call them, how committed they are in your services, how motivated they are taking part. Because behavioral researchers have shown that in many cases, people do not change their behaviors, they cannot adapt new capabilities or new know-how unless they are motivated to do so, unless they understand why it would be important for them. And therefore, I really encourage you to think about these qualitative outputs as well. And then changes box. And this is the sort of second deviation from that standard input, output, outcome, impact model. I deliberately choose to use this term change because quite often when I looked through the impact model that certain organization had drawn, they got really confused between output and outcome. And I noticed that when we call this phase, this stage of the impact model a change, it rings a bell more intuitively. So this change box is about describing the changes in beneficiaries' lives, capabilities, know-how, or behavioral patterns. And as I said, the goal already should be in this level. And last but definitely not least, you should be able to first forecast and then prove how those changes are accumulated to societal level. So for example, I have used this example of social exclusion and making sure that boys that are in risk of dropping out upper secondary school really get graduated from there. It definitely has impact on education level to start. It has impact on the school environment too, and so forth. And now it gets really exciting and fun. When the impact model is drawn, you should figure out ways how to verify it. And please note that it's not one-time solution to make impact model and then attach relevant indicators to it, because those indicators are there for you so that you could constantly keep improving your impact model. Because you never are going to get it right at the first go. You need information on, for example, those activity levels. How actively should your clients or should your beneficiaries take part? Can I really measure how committed they are? And so forth. So the information is also perhaps primarily for you to improve your impact model and keep developing your activities. So therefore, verifying change is a crucial matter. So in this lower left-hand side, you have these checklists. There are, of course, many ways to verify change. I'm not going to go them, in depth, because each one of them would be session of their own. But at least you should be able to establish the baseline so that you can see how well the beneficiaries are developing, how they are proceeding with whatever you are trying to get them to proceed with. And can you do follow-up after they have left your services or stopped using some technological solution? Can you follow up on them, let's say half months after they have gone or 1 year after? It's important to be sure that the changes are sustainable. They are able to keep on with those new behaviors, with using new capabilities, and so on. And then, of course, can you find a comparison groups from perhaps other service providers, from public sector, or can you conduct experiments to convince that it was due to your solution and your activities that made the changes happen? And then there is the indicator checklist. You should actually be able to tick all those boxes, because good set of metrics includes various type of indicators, quantitative, qualitative. You should of course ask beneficiaries their opinion on how their lives have been changed, but it would be really good to have some objective data as well, typically, for example, from workers, from statistics, and so forth. Another thing is that please be careful that you have metrics that measure long-term changes and short-term changes, both. Because especially if your goal is far ahead and you only set metrics for that goal, it might take years for you to see whether you are even on the right track. So you should plan the set of indicators so that you can detect your progress and the progress of your beneficiaries all the time. So you get sort of alarm signals that, okay, maybe something is not going as we planned. That allows you to develop your activities and change the things you do. And then here I hope that both the canvas and this illustration tells you that the indicators should be really attached to the model. Each element or each stage of the impact model need its own kind of indicators. Solution, for example, it's about tracking or seeing how the concept works, whether it's accessible, whether it's available for all of those people for whom is it intended to, whether it's usable, and so forth. And also you should keep track on resources, of course. And the outputs, well, there's a lot of quantitative stuff, as I already mentioned, how many people we are meeting, how many people are participating, how many hours, how many times, whatever is it that is relevant for you. Maybe I want to highlight one thing in this phase in particular, is that quite often you have certain target groups that you are reaching out for, and you should definitely keep record on whether you are actually getting them to come to your services or using your product. Because surprisingly few actually do them. It's easy to keep account on people. Okay, we have reached 100 people this month. Yeah, great. So we are going on the right direction. But do you know that those 100 people are right people? And right in this context, of course, means whether they are actually your target groups or not. And then change, measuring change. Well, your goal, setting metrics for your goal is one thing. For example, in the example that I have used, those boys getting graduated from upper secondary school, that's really straightforward goal and easy to measure. But if we are really, in the end of the day, trying to reduce social exclusion, you definitely need to work with various with them. It's not enough to only guide them through the school. You have to be able to give them capabilities that they are able to keep on educating themselves, or they are able to move to work life. So they might be, for example, beneficiaries who suffer from mental health issues or drug abuse issues. So in order those changes to be sustainable, you probably have to measure and have to work with many more areas of life than the one which is set on your goal, to ensure that the changes are sustainable and they actually lead towards the impact and reducing the need. And yeah, well, measuring impact, that's one thing. Well, first of all, don't be too ambitious, especially if you are just, getting acquainted with social impact evaluation methods. It might be enough, for example, if in this upper secondary school example, you would be focusing on, well, what's the impact for the teachers' well-being, or the performance indicators that the schools in question are using, and so forth. So you can start tracking impact with this quite, let's say, concrete and modest level. And then if your solution scales up and you get more and more schools to join in this effort, then you can sort of broaden also your perspective on impact. But it really helps if you limit that impact part in particular at start. It's definitely better to measure one impact thoroughly and in reliable way than to do 5 really vague way. And then, well, you see the gray bars beneath the indicators. It's there to highlight that there are actually 3 different types of indicators which you will need. Well, first, these operations control metrics. They are pretty standard metrics and also relevant for social impact evaluation. So I hope you see that starting to evaluate your impact isn't necessarily this huge add-on block to your already existing activities. But you should rather see what elements of, for example, these operations control metrics you can use to evaluate your impact. I'm quite certain that everyone, for example, collects some feedback from their clients, keep record on the things that are done, and so on. They are really useful social impact evaluation as well. So don't forget them. Don't forget to use them in this context as well. And it's always, especially what comes to those change metrics, you should use these validated and widely used indicators. Well, firstly, because they are validated and you can be sure that you are measuring the right things. And also because they might give you a reference point. Many research, especially on national level, but also European level, I have referred to this European Social Survey. they give you quite detailed background information. So the outcomes are reported in relation to different background information, and you might get reference point from there. So you can say that, okay, in average, in this region, in this age group, people, well, let's say 20% of people feel that they are lonely often. This might be the type of information you might find from European Social Survey. And then you can see how your beneficiary group are doing compared that information. It's really useful. It's obviously quite hard. I mean, if we were only talking about Finland, I could give you a full list of indicator banks and information banks that you can use. But if you look at the international level, these are one of the main indicators banks you should look into. And I'm sure every country has its own statistical data and so on. So look for the validated and widely used indicators. It also makes your results more credible. And we are actually coming final slides of my presentation, but just one point I wanted to make. Those metrics can actually help you to communicate your outcomes and results quite effective and appealing way. I have here two examples. One from Singapore, this really basic level example. Impact-wise, there isn't much, I have to say. But anyways, the structure is really nice. They tell their mission and then present some key figures to concretize that mission. And this level is quite easy to reach, almost anyone, I would say. But when you get improved, maybe better reference point is this UNF, UK British social enterprise called UNF. Look at the impact report. It's good read for anyone interested in social impact evaluation. Here is a snapshot from the impact report, and they are quite nicely actually covering all parts of the impact model. They are telling about the solution, about the outputs, about the changes they are bringing to the beneficiaries' lives, and from different perspectives too. There is this a self-reported quality of life, so self-reported. This information is from the beneficiaries themselves, but then some figures are from measurements from, or let's say information given by employees, by the workers who are working with elderly people. It's good report. And think about having that type of impact dashboard on your websites. That would be quite appealing way to communicate your social impact. And you can always start it with defining or describing the need this way. So even if you wouldn't have these proven results, you can describe the need and your goal with these type of dashboards. And last but not least, there is this teeny tiny box on the right hand side, the upper right corner of the canvas called revision date. And this is a small hint really to you that you should act on the information you collect. You should keep revising the canvas, revising the model, revising the indicators all the time. So making decisions, developing your activities, maximizing your social impact. So it's not one-time go, it's a cyclical process. Well, I think that was what I had to say to you during this session. I have still some more time, so if you are willing to ask some questions or post comments, please do so. And you can anyway do it in this way, the web page, the Facebook page of this event, and I can afterwards comment as well if you are too puzzled right now. Yeah, and I forgot to mention that the social impact evaluation canvas, you can upload it from my web pages free of charge, and there is also a little tutorial which guides you through the canvas and hopefully tackle some of the most frequently asked questions. Well, thank you for the pleasant experience, and let's evaluate some impact.